Have you found yourself wondering, is there something more? If so, then you, my friend, are a dreamer in waiting. I'd like to welcome you to the Dream On podcast. I'm Julia Gentry, and along with my husband, Travis Gentry, we discuss real, raw, and not small talk conversations about faith, family, entrepreneurship, and all the things that matter most in this life in order to help people bridge the gap between what they currently have and what they really want most. Join us as we give you insights, tools, and strategy to chase every dream that's on the inside of you. But be forewarned, this podcast is not for the faint of heart, but rather those of heart. This is the Dream On podcast.
Welcome to the Dream On podcast. I'm Travis Gentry with my best friend, Julia Gentry. And today is a great day.
Today is a great day.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we talking about today? Because I feel like we've already done a podcast before we actually start the podcast.
Yeah, we do. People go, what is it like preparing for this? And I'm like, it's just real life. You know, most people are kind of going over their show notes and they're talking about like, here's the timing of which we're going to do everything. No, Travis and I are like legit in our chairs.
We've been talking about for like a week. And then another like 30 minutes before we start because we're so like, there's so much to this.
Yeah.
And we're living this out right now.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
We're going to talk about the areas in which we're hiding.
Where are you hiding?
Where do we start?
Man. And that was the show. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, so my question is, are you asking me? Are you asking me where I'm hiding? Or are you asking them where they're hiding?
Totally. Let's give some examples. What's the overview of what we want to talk about today?
Yep. So I think that what we're alluding to here is just a gut check episode for you to be asking the question, where am I hiding? Which means, what are the things in my life that I hide behind mentally, emotionally, physically that keep me from achieving my dreams, from being the best version of me, from breakthrough, from what I want most, right? Like there are these areas, kind of the dark corners that we find ourselves in that keep us from sometimes doing the hard things, that keep us from the things that we want most. And we just thought it would be really good to share, you know, of course, front row seat in our lives of where we're doing this, but for all of us to look at it. Because I think it's the hard stuff to talk about, where you're hiding. And
most of the time, it prohibits you from living your dream. Mm-hmm. You're hiding, you're undercover, you're doing things not at your full potential, which is ultimately prohibiting you from living your dream.
And I think the slippery slope behind these, as you and I have been wrestling with this and talking it out and all those things, is you don't know that you're doing it. You don't know
consciously.
You don't know that you're doing it most of the time. It's something that I think is this gradually, suddenly. Mm-hmm. You know, like even for us in our journey with alcohol, when we finally made the commitment to stop drinking, I think it was a long time coming, but it was this like gradually, suddenly, this is a place I'm hiding. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I wasn't, if I had looked back 8 years ago, I would never have thought anything of it. And then over time, slowly, suddenly, it was like, oh man, this is actually the thing that's keeping me from what I want most.
Yeah. And most often it's because it's a habit, it's a pattern that you live in, or it's your environment. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. And so with alcohol, that's kind of what you do, whether it's 5 o'clock or it's Friday or Saturday or you're getting together at a barbecue. It's just kind of what you do. Yep. And Les Brown says it, you can't see the picture if you're in the frame. Mm-hmm. So it's really taking a step back and outside of it and saying like, and this is why we want to do this podcast today, is because where are you hiding? Yeah. Maybe step back and look at your daily routine, your weekly, your monthly, like what are you doing that is not promoting and allowing you to do and live into the dreams and the desires that you have.
Well, and even when you said that earlier to me though, of where am I hiding on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, my answers could almost be very different, which was interesting to me because how I might hide daily and how I hide yearly was like, oh, this actually is like a different way to kind of come at it or to identify it, because it is those small things that I'm doing every single day that actually creates where I end up each year. And so that just thinking of that.
But it's like the ripple effect though, right? Because the daily turns into weekly, weekly turns into monthly. And so it's really, so let's maybe back it down to what are you doing on a daily basis that you see that's consistent, that you feel like you're hiding based off of from the time you get up. Yeah. Like the routine that you have in the morning typically starts off your day. Like what are you doing on a daily basis that maybe is not in alignment with your dreams? Yeah. Or like, how, like, is it a new workout routine? Is it drinking water? Is it working out? Is it reading, 30 minutes before you hit the ground running? Because typically it's like you have this routine and most people are not consciously aware of it because they're just in reaction mode because that's what they do. Yeah. And they typically wake up at about the same time. They do the same routine. They go and get coffee. They have breakfast. They make the kids breakfast. So it's like this routine. Yeah. And you even mentioned to me like a couple of weeks ago, like I created because I've been pondering the same question of like, where am I hiding? Yeah. What am I not doing? And so I'm waking up earlier and you asked me, do you need an alarm clock? And most of the time, 90% I don't because I have this new like perspective on the dreams that we're going after. Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting to me is when I've been asking myself, well, why do we hide? Or for me personally, why do I hide? I think it's because that there is a level of quote unquote safety that is found in the areas that we hide. So let me give you an example. Kim and I are talking the other day. I value efficiency very much. I like talking fast. I like checking things off the list fast. I like moving fast. Like I even notice myself with the kids sometimes and I'm like, let's go. And then you're like, why am I in a hurry all the time? Like, let's get hurry up, get
fast.
In the car.
Let's write emails fast. Like everything is fast. And so her and I are talking about this and all of a sudden she is very similar to I am. And we're rapid firing all this stuff. And I finally was like, wait, if I'm in this efficiency mode, I'm actually not connecting. And connection is also a huge value, right? But connection is slow. Connection is vulnerable. Connection takes time. Connection is a long-term play. Connection is deep and rooted. And so what was so interesting that for me is that immediately I went, oh, I can hide behind my to-do list and my checklist and fast because it feels like this emotional armor as opposed to picking up the phone and calling and asking for help or asking for some ideas or like taking 30 minutes to have a phone call to really unpack and not know where this is going to go and have a deeper conversation and ask hard questions because an email is faster and easier and more efficient, but it also like keeps me quote unquote safe. Yeah. And how many people are responding off of the emails relative to when you pick up the phone? I'm not answering that question. That's not what we're talking about today. But that's a perfect example of like you can send off 100 emails. For sure. But you're probably maybe getting, one response relative to calling 10 people and you get 5 responses. And then again, it goes back to this trend of podcasts that we've been talking about of like picking your heart and all those things. Well, it's easier to hide. Like it just is. It's easier to hide. Or again, if I'm using alcohol, I'm just going to throw myself under the bus a lot today because it's like rapid fire in my head. I found myself walking into a room needing even just a glass of wine. And for those of you who don't know our journey too much on alcohol, I don't feel like I was this alcoholic that drank a lot. I just drank often. So 1 glass or even 1.5 was fine. Like that wasn't on paper. That's not a quote unquote problem until for me, I almost needed it to walk into a room that I felt uncomfortable because it kind of took the edge off. Mm-hmm. And so that for me became an area that I could hide because emotionally I didn't have to like connect or put myself out there, which is exactly what I really want most, but it's vulnerable to do day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. So for me, the trends was alcohol, a to-do list or a checklist, speed, efficiency. I hide behind efficiency. Mm-hmm. That's for me. So welcome to my therapy session. What are other examples? So let's go a little bit
broader.
No, your turn. No, I think you have to share where you're hiding.
Where am I hiding? Where am I hiding? I think where I'm hiding most is really putting myself out there. Mm-hmm. And even with the podcast, like this is like vulnerable. This is, like I feel like we have something to share, and hopefully it can inspire and help other people to rethink and to really live their dreams. With your book, Dream I Dare You, with our podcast, like it's all about like living your full life.
Yeah.
And there's so this is something that we've started and stopped multiple times. So this is like, I'm not hiding, but I'm not doing it to the best of my abilities. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about this morning when I was working out. I'm like, okay, like if I'm not hiding, what does that look like?
Oh, that's a good question.
And so you would see some big changes, and you will see some big changes as we move forward with this podcast. Mm-hmm. To do it at the best of our abilities with the knowledge that we have now.
Yeah.
And then as we progress, it's going to evolve and get even better.
Yeah.
But I think I've done it just enough. You've done it. I'm going to call you out a little bit too. I think you've done it just enough. We've done it to our abilities, but not to the best of our abilities. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm hiding.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you said that though, because I think at some level, the way through this is one, a heightened awareness of where am I hiding? Just simply the question, where am I hiding? Like today's podcast is not to give you this bullet list and checklist of where you're hiding and how to not hide. And this is just your own gut check of all of us hide in different ways, and how we no longer hide is also done in different ways. So I think the first step is simply asking the question, where am I hiding? And then I love that you just said that of what would it look like if I wasn't? Because I think there's a reason that we're hiding, which is probably to protect ourselves. It feels vulnerable. We feel like we could be rejected. We might fail, right? Probably leans towards our limiting beliefs, right? And all the narratives that we have, and speaks to our greatest fears, right? That like mean something about us. But at some level, the only way I'm actually going to let go of that is I have to like laser in on, okay, if I wasn't hiding, what's the potential here?
Yeah.
And that opens up the imagination. So it takes us from this fear-focused question to this, what's possible? Like look up, imagine, sky's the limit, like what's possible here if I wasn't hiding? I think that's the swing that we need to go from fear to hope, fear to faith.
Yeah. And one of the things I've seen in ourselves and other people, if you can do it on your own, it's not a God-sized dream. It's not a big enough dream.
Yeah.
And so looking at that, knowing where I want to go, where we've talked about this multiple times, where we want to go with the podcast and events and different, the community, we need other people.
Right.
Like if you can do it on your own to a certain level, you're hiding.
Yeah.
And so if it's just about you, I think that it's not big enough. So I challenge you and encourage you to look at it, relook at it.
Yeah.
And that's not all areas of your life. Obviously, if you're working out and you're trying to, do something, but I also think that you could get there quicker, faster if you got other people involved.
But it's so funny. As you're saying that, like my insides are like this buzz. And so let's just go with this for a second, because even with Cami, so let's just say this. I know that Travis and I are putting out all this content and you're seeing some of my videos now and I'm doing lives, and that's really hard for me to do. Like some people love it. I even remember I moved to LA when I was 18 years old because I wanted to be an actress, and come to find out I don't want to be an actress. Like it's actually hard to do this, though some people love it. It is not the easiest thing for me to do either. And so I'm sitting with Travis and Cami probably a month ago, and both of them were like, you have to do more content. Like you need to put yourself out there even more. And I like literally tears are rolling down my face because I'm like, the level of vulnerability to do that is huge. And I didn't know that that's exactly, again, where I was hiding, but where it was, is I was doing it all on my own. I mean, really, if you look back at my career for the last 8 years, it's been awesome. And I'm done better than a lot of people in my field, but I have been solo. And it's absolutely where I've been hiding, because I have this great fear that you're going to get really close to me and find out I'm not as good as you think I am. And then you're going to reject me.
Yeah.
And now here I'm letting, right, even obviously you've seen the front row, but like a Cami, right, and the team, and now the world getting a little bit closer. And so it's butting up against like my greatest limiting beliefs on a whole new level. And I don't like that.
And I think coming back to like what you said, I think some of it comes back to your experiences, your limiting beliefs, because you put yourself out there, you didn't accomplish it.
Yeah.
So for you to do it again is vulnerable.
Yes.
In this context, or anybody that's listening, think about a time that you were like gung-ho on something, real estate investing or starting a new career or going to school and getting some kind of degree.
Yep.
You started it and you fizzled out and you didn't succeed.
Yep.
So for you to put yourself out there, whether it's in the same direction or a new direction, and tell your friends and family about it, you have that in the back of your mind of like, well, what if I say this and then I don't do it again?
Do you know that one of the greatest killers, dream killers, if we will, is disappointment? Because
for yourself.
Yeah, disappointment. When we actually feel disappointment, do you know that it is there's a secondary emotion, a firstary emotion. I don't know what I'm saying. It is so close to the soul that we don't want to feel it again. So anger is a secondary emotion. So when I feel angry, it actually means I've skipped over a soul emotion. So when any one of us experiences disappointment, or we feel like we are a disappointment, right? A shattered dream, someone rejected us, we failed, we rejected ourselves. Like that is so close to our core that there's almost something unconsciously that snaps within us to go, I'm not doing that again. And we put on the armor, right? We shift for efficiency over connection. We go to the alcohol over exposure to, more people, right? Like we go solo instead of community. Why? Because I don't want to feel that pain of disappointment again.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I think social media in general can be inauthentic.
Agreed.
And you're putting on a facade of who you are as opposed to being true and real. Of like, not every day is great. Not all your pictures turn out. I was thinking about this of like, and maybe we'll do a video on it as far as like going to the pumpkin patch. Like it sounds amazing, and it was amazing, but I haven't shared this thought with you, but like going to the pumpkin patch with 5 kids is an experience. But what you're going to see, and I think Julia, you already posted some pictures on Facebook, beautiful pictures, like of our family, and we're smiling, doing a few things. But there was also some things throughout the 5 hours that we were there that you're like, I'm stressed out. Like this is amping me out. But you look back and it's a good thing to do, of like, just look at the positive throughout the day. But it's like, if you could see and speed up and look at all the moments, it's not all glamorous.
I'm so glad that you said that. And it was funny because since starting to put our lives back out there a little bit more, I want to be a real family. And so I would agree. The pumpkin patch for me was an experience. And the pictures are really stinking cute. Like we have the cutest kids in my opinion, and the orange pumpkins. And when I posted it, like I was kind of in that moment of just reminiscing because the pictures were so cute. And I had a few people go, oh my gosh, your family's so cute. And that looked like the best time ever. And I got home and I like literally laid in bed and I had to not think about having a beer. Like I consciously I was like, I want to hide. I want to go away. I want a beer. Like I had to consciously think about that, and almost reposted on Facebook of like, please know how imperfectly perfect this experience was. Because you're right. I think so many people could look at that and go, oh, it must be nice to be them. And it's so perfect and so pretty. And I was amped as well.
Yeah. And we even talked about, and being there again, trying to be authentic with this podcast and everything that we're going to put out there, is we talked about having a beer.
Yeah.
It's October. Pumpkin and cinnamon, I really do. And I found this drink. It's a cold brew pumpkin whoop thing. It's amazing. But it's like, we talked about it of like, man, it's October and a pumpkin beer sounds really good right now.
Yeah.
And I had to sit with myself, and I know you did too, because we kind of talked about it and we were wrestling with it. But it's still there. Like we haven't drank in over a year, but it still comes up because it's an easy way for us to disconnect. And that's exactly what it would have been. I want to go buy a beer. And you even said it. You said it'd be nice to have a beer. And I was like, yeah, it would be nice to have like 3 or 4 beers. You know, like I didn't drink in the past to have a beer. Yeah. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to have a few beers because I truly want to disconnect. That's why I did it. Yeah. And so thinking about that, walking through that process of drinking it, like I visualized myself going to the store, drinking a beer, having another beer, and how I would feel. And that's when I think both of us came to the conclusion, like, it's not worth it. Well, and it's a slippery slope and it's not worth it.
I agree. And I think that in those times, what has been helpful is one, to have you to be able to say, like, here's the truth. I want a beer. Because I think what most of us would do, whatever it is, we hide the truth. Like, we hide our fears. We don't say it out loud to people that we can trust. But then we also don't ask ourselves a deeper question of not just, why do I want a beer? It's, no, what am I hiding from? Like, what is it that this is going to give me? What is it that just checking something off the list is going to give me? What is it, whatever, fill in the blank, wherever you're hiding, what is it going to give me that I need right now that I can't give myself? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only way to like heal through this and actually progress wholly on the other side, is that we have to answer that question. Like, what is it that this beer is going to give me? Well, it's going to give me some downtime. Okay, so do I need to take a nap? Like, do I need to ask Travis for help? Do I need to not go to the pumpkin patch? Like, what do I need to do? You know, like what, or if I think about even this silly idea of like these sending emails or anything that's task oriented versus connecting with people. And it's like, what do I need to do to put myself in a place again to connect? And a lot of times the question is just be real. Like, call who's on your heart, not who's on the like to-do list. Call who's on your heart to call and connect with.
100%. Yeah, it's to connect with yourself. Yeah. To connect with other people. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, you know, thinking about, I mean, so many different experiences come up over the last couple of years as we've traveled. Mm-hmm. And you're like, the video that we did or the pictures that we took were amazing. But you think about that process and you're like, you've got to we have to slow down. Yeah. And that's part of this journey for us of like slowing down, like you said, getting in the car sometimes and you have 5 kids that you're putting in the car and one of them, you know, is still putzing around and looking at things on the ground. And by one of them, we mean Zion Cruz Gentry. Nixon does it a little bit too. But you're like, hurry up. And you're like, I don't need to be anywhere. We don't need to be anywhere. Yeah. It's just my thing. Yeah. So to stop and to look at them and just enjoy the process. Yeah. Same thing with being at the pumpkin patch and a couple of the experiences that we had where it was like 30 to 45 minutes talking about what face paint they're going to get, knowing in 3 hours we're going to wipe it off. And you're like, that is such a waste of time, but it's not a waste of time to them. Well, and the experience and the process we can embrace and enjoy that, or we can be frustrated by it and disconnect and then turn to whatever it is. Right. And I think every time we hide, what we're doing is we're actually closing off to one of the greatest human needs, which is connection. I mean, that if you look at even the intimacy of having a baby, right? Like what a baby needs is the immediate bond with a mom, right? It needs to be held, it needs to be connected. And over time, we start to think that we don't need that. And so even if you look at that, our need for speed or efficiency, or we choose these things from alcohol to busying our time, to food, to money, to working, to busy, to all of these things can cause a disconnect in ourselves and other people, which is our lifeline. Like connection is the way, you know, like that's the answer. And so what's interesting is we keep choosing all these mechanisms to hide, to protect ourselves, probably because of the past or the narrative or what we've seen or experienced. And it's causing a huge chasm between what we have and what we want. Yep. So let's give a few examples, just kind of on the cuff of like, where have we hid and not talking about it? And then where do we see other people hide? Yeah. So work is one of them. Yep. Like I'm going to grind it out. I'm going to work because I'm hiding from whatever it may be. Yeah. Alcohol, which we've already mentioned, food, working out. like a certain personification of, you know, I'm going to work out, but I'm unhealthy and not satisfied inside.
Yep.
I'm doing it to appease and get those, you know, likes or comments,
yep.
but I'm truly dying inside.
Yep. I think that there's a tendency to isolate and retreat. So again, I'm an introvert, and I have a lot of friends that are introverts too. So we recharge alone, but then you stay alone. You know, you keep it, it starts to be the only answer. And so you find yourself at home more, or not connecting more, or right, just shutting down from people.
Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot.
Forgiveness. I would say forgiveness of yourself.
You mean,
unforgiveness, not forgiving yourself,
mm-hmm.
and then unforgiveness of others.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of hide behind that,
because
that can be one of the hardest things, to forgive yourself for a decision, or, you know, multiple decisions that you made, or forgiving someone else
mm-hmm.
and making that right, because it prohibits you in certain situations
mm-hmm.
from stepping out again. Of, you know, if you had a bad business relationship,
mm-hmm.
you can use that as a crutch and hide behind it of like, well, I'm never going to have a business partner ever again. Because they're all like this. As opposed to saying and taking ownership of, what did I do wrong? What did that other person do wrong? And forgive them and know that every experience is not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm. I think we can hide behind our pain.
Right? Like what?
Meaning, like, if we've been hurt, it's easy to continue to go back to that over and over and over again. Meaning, like, well, you don't know what's happened in my lifetime, right? Whether you've done it or someone has done it to you, whether it's once or 10 times. I think it's really easy to use our pain and our past as an excuse to hide. No, I don't want to undermine that pain is real. And when people take advantage of you or cross boundaries, it is 1,000% real. And there's a level of it happened, healing, and moving forward versus using it as a hiding place.
Yeah. And getting help with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are definitely some traumas and experiences that you can't do on your own.
Yeah.
You have to go be vulnerable with, whether it's with that person or a third party.
Yeah.
And I think 100%.
I mean, so let's unpack this. I think we've used this word so many different times, vulnerability. So can you tell me, not according to Webster's definition, according to you as a man, even hearing that word, because you hear all that whole list, and there's a level of vulnerability to come outside of that, right? To walk through that, to be seen, to be loved, to be connected, to do something that you're actually really afraid of, even if, as a man, right? Like, because this would be easier if I'm just talking to another girl, we're talking about those things, but I think men so often, we just heard of this the other day of a mid 40-year-old man who on paper was successful, had an incredible career, kids, family, nobody saw it coming, and he hung himself. Mm-hmm. And you're like, that was a man who had such pain on the inside. Because again, we asked, like, was there any proof? And everyone around him was like, none. We saw no signs. Mm-hmm. So can you tell me, what does vulnerability mean to you?
What does vulnerability mean to me? Man, you're putting me on the spot here.
I'll play the elevator music while you Travis is also an internal processor. So if he had asked me that question, I would just
she'd process it out. So let's start with you, and maybe
can you think
then
while
circle
I'm
back.
talking?
Yeah, I will process that. Wow. But you're absolutely right. I need to process that for a second.
Because I think, again, what I would encourage all of us is that we already, when I say that word, I guarantee everybody already has an immediate knee-jerk reaction. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I'm not saying that our definitions are wrong, unless they are, but I think that we can already have a negative connotation or I already do that and I'm vulnerable all the time. No, you actually, here's another area. So the opposite of like Pinterest or Instagram, we showcase the beautiful things. And then there's that group of people who showcase all of their problems, right? Mm-hmm. No, I'm vulnerable all the time. And I tell all my problems on social media, and I tell all my friends, it's the drama friend who it's like this constant, no, I'm super vulnerable. No, you're actually hiding behind the drama.
Yeah.
That's not vulnerability.
You're addicted to drama opposed to
but you're not actually letting people get close and healing because you're hiding behind the drama of it. So for me, vulnerability is, I would say we have a mind, we have a spirit, and we have a soul as people. The mind mind body is, right, anything that we can be thinking of or physically doing, right? These are all the pieces of like, I have these thoughts, and we take care of our mind by thinking good thoughts. We take care of our bodies by working out, right? We have a spirit, and our spirit man is the part of us that this is why we would fast or pray or go to church, right? Like, is that we connect with God on a spiritual level. And then we have a soul. And the difference between your spirit and your soul is that, and I'm sure I know I can relate, and maybe you can if you're listening, but that's the place where, have you ever been in church and you could even be raising your hand in worship or praying and feel nothing? Have you ever been there? Or is it just me? It's probably just me. Like, you're in there and you're going, I just got done fasting. I've been in my Bible. I've been praying, and I don't feel anything. That's because that's the soul. And so soul is what I would say is vulnerability, is the piece in all of us that needs to be fully seen for who we are, not who we pretend to be, not even who we think we are, not even what we've done, not what we could do. It's just who we are. Mm-hmm. It's our whole heart. It's all of the love and the fear. It's the mistakes and the potential. It's just the pureness of who you are. And so vulnerability to me is when you really start to step out from the alcohol, the to-do list, the hiding of any sort. You basically go, here's who I am. The Greatest Showman song. Can we please play that right now?
I listened to that while I was working out again.
You guys, we will do this. When you need to know, when Travis Gentry works out, lifting till failure, and he's like just grinding in the gym.
You have no idea what I'm listening to. So we're going to do a few little clips of when
what Travis is actually listening to when he's
all
working out.
Over the place.
Because he walks in the other day and he is it looks like, I think my husband's the sexiest man in the world, but he looks like, he just got it. And he's like, listen to the song I was just listening to. And I said, while you're working out? He says, yes. And he plays The Greatest Showman song. I'm not afraid of who I am. What is that song? Fly away these days. I won't let this bro. Whatever.
That song. That's what I was listening to.
For we are glorious. That song. That's what vulnerability means to me.
Yeah.
Did I give you enough time?
Yeah. So mine is the expectation of myself that is not like yet realized. Mm. So I have this perception of myself, or I should know this, or I should be here. Mm-hmm. And so for me...
So letting someone in on that process? Like, is vulnerability letting me see that guy who's not fully developed?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easy. Once you start to get to a certain point in your life, it's for me, I'll talk for myself. It's easy to be like, you feel like you should know everything.
Okay.
And I've come to the realization a long time ago, I know nothing. Like if I could know some of the people that I would say are my mentors or people that I'm around, like if I could know what they forgot, I would be way further ahead. I'm so intrigued by like knowledge. Yeah. But what I feel vulnerable by is when you put yourself out there, and my own expectation of I should know this. Mm-hmm. I'm at this age or whatever it is, and I don't.
And so then it's letting someone see that part of you, not just the quote unquote finished part of you.
Yeah, 100%. The process of like, I don't know this, and that's what I see stop so many people of like, well, I don't know how to. And we all didn't know how to at some point. Yeah. And so I think it's this thing of like, I judge myself. And so sometimes in the past, I wouldn't even start because I'm like, well, I don't know how, and I don't want to be vulnerable to put myself out there to ask someone that I respect, but they probably think that I should already know that. So it's like this story that you have with yourself that prohibits it sets the limitations of what you can do and the life that you can live.
I think that's so huge. If we even go back to, the example of the gentleman that we heard who, took his life, or we think about all these people that we're talking about who have shared areas that they hide, or when we're looking at our own, what I'm hearing you say is that vulnerability is the point where you let someone in to see the unfinished part of you. Right? Like the en route part of you, the perfectly imperfect part of you.
Yeah.
Like where you are as opposed to where you should be.
Yeah. And that's exactly like this podcast is one of those for both of us.
I would agree.
And we've talked about it so many times of like, we're getting started, the ball's in motion, but we're not where I think we should be. And that's what stopped us from like fully pressing into this. It will be better next time and next week and next month and next year.
Yeah.
But we're starting here, and it is what it is with what we know.
Yeah.
And now it's time to, at the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about, I know I can do better. Yeah. So now it's up to me to do as much as I can with what I know, knowing that's going to grow.
Well, and what's interesting is that I think, again, after connection, I think the next greatest thing that we as humans want and look for is freedom, to live free, right? And I think what's interesting is that's already been given to us, especially if you're a believer. It says if the sun sets you free, you are free indeed, like we live from freedom. But what's so interesting here now, and I've been saying this to myself all the time, is Julie, you can hide or you can be free. You don't get to do both, because the minute you hide and you go to protect yourself again, your armor's on and you're no longer free. As opposed to the minute that you go, no, I'm actually going to stay open and I'm going to stay vulnerable, but I'm not doing this for them. I'm not doing this for the person I'm calling. I'm not doing this for whoever they are. I'm doing it for me. The book Untethered Soul talks about this all the time, that the idea here is I'm not staying open and vulnerable and real for you, audience, world, mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, person that I won't ever even know at the skate park. We talked about last time. I'm doing this for me. And so it's like in those moments that could be really easy to go, man, I'm going to close off here and I'm going to hide. I sometimes just say, do I want to hide or do I want to be free? Because by staying open, by staying vulnerable, by letting someone into the perfectly imperfect parts or the unfinished parts that you're talking about, or the soul of me, the all of me, I will stay free. And then it becomes almost just a choice.
Yeah.
Do I want to hide or do I want to be free? And that's really, our question for you guys today is just to ask, where are you hiding? What would it look like if you were no longer hiding? And do you want to hide or do you want to be free?
And I'm going to end this a little bit differently, but I think if this is the first time that you've listened to the podcast, one, like get the book, and there's a workbook that comes with it, but this is kind of the foundation of who we are and kind of what we're going to be talking about. Or like and subscribe and check out the Facebook channel or the Facebook group. We've had a couple people reach out of like, oh man, I want to get connected, but join the Facebook community as we talk about some of these thoughts and ideas, and just going and pursuing our dreams. And we're going to be real and authentic and vulnerable. But we hope that you join and get engaged. Don't just do it on your own. Invite other people. The whole premise of this book is a book club, right? Yeah. And so that's why there's a journal and a workbook that goes with the book. So get the book, get a few of your friends or family together and work through it. It's not like a quick read. Yeah, no, it's meaty. It's meant to challenge you and make you think and rethink. And but after you do that, it's a process and a journey. Yeah. It's not you read this book and you're good. Like get connected, whether it's to our community or another community that's like in the direction that you're wanting to go. Yeah. So I'm excited about this podcast. It's going to get better and better as we move forward. Awesome.
Great way to end an episode. We like free things.
So until next time, we appreciate you, and we will see you soon on the Dream On podcast.
On behalf of both of us, thank you for listening to another episode of Dream On. Don't forget to visit our website, The Dream Factory & Co., for all the show notes and other tools and resources to get you unstuck, clear, and helping you reprogram your thoughts and beliefs so that you can live out your dreams with a community that supports and challenges you. Until next time, dream on.